Welcome to the Supporting Families Together work group. The purpose of today's call or today's webinar or today's meeting, I guess virtual meeting, is really to orient the work group to the process and the methodology and the framework and the work plan of how we're going to be going through this strategy development with you all. So with that, I would love to just have people introduce themselves, you know, who you are, your role perhaps, and then I'm looking at Ben to see what our check-in question is going to be, if we're going to use the silly or...
Have we done that one here?
I don't think so.
And then one silly thing that makes you happy. So I can go first because often people are a little confused by that as a check-in question. I'm Ben Williams. I'm the Director of Advisory Services at FCI. And with that, we're both really excited to work with you on this project. I'll give two things that are silly that make me happy. One is playing the ukulele. I'm an awful musician, but I have a lot of fun just playing. I started about 6 months or 4 or 6 months ago now. Time is flying. And it just makes me happy, and it's very relaxing. Another silly thing, there's a Twitter feed that has pictures of silly dogs doing crazy things, and every day they send, I think, one picture, and it's always just something that makes me laugh or chuckle in the morning before I start my day. So those are two silly things that make me happy.
So great, thanks Ben. Eric, would you be willing to go next and then try and help the folks in the room there check in?
Yep, sounds good. This is Eric. I'm the co-director of operations, and so like my silly thing, I was going to follow along on the dog theme. I am a little dog person, so I'm a sucker for just like a little tiny buddy kind of playing around. So, and that's how I start my day too with my little guy. So, we're nice and walk.
All right, thank you.
So this is Jill Hoyting. I'm the co-director of programs and external relations, and I'm following the animal theme now.
we do that a lot, don't we?
We really do. But this came to mind right when you said silly, because there is this little squirrel around my house, and it's blonde. And I just get this huge smile whenever I see it. And now Jeremy, my boyfriend, he will make fun of me when he's like, I know, I'm going to look over at you right now, and you're going to have this big silly grin on your face.
That's funny.
It's totally true. I just get really happy when I see the blonde squirrel. I'm going to get really sad if I ever stop seeing it.
You know where it is if you stop seeing it.
Sorry.
Squirrel heaven. Yes. That's right. I'm Abby Brown. I'm the Early Childhood Program Coordinator with SFTA, and I get to do lots of different things in that role, which is fun. I don't know if I have anything silly, but I think coffee definitely makes me really happy. And I think I need a little bit of it this morning.
Especially on these gray days.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
I am Romilia Schluter, and I work in quality improvement here at the CFTA. And I think the silliest thing I have in my life, two things I have in my life right now are my two little granddaughters. And they can really be silly. And we spend time together and have a wonderful, wonderful time, giggling and everything else.
Great.
Yeah, I'm Mary Beth Plain, the president of the board, and my silly thing is also my granddaughter. You know, I mean, you know, I can't think of her without smiling, and spending time with her is really a lot of fun. The other silly thing that I'm doing is trying to learn how to juggle.
Oh my goodness!
Ah.
You shall juggle at our next meeting.
Such as Ruby.
Yeah, they mostly just go flying all over the place.
Our next book club event.
We'll have to add that into our agenda for the full day, juggling session.
I'll demonstrate.
Your ukulele.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else there with you, Eric, that we haven't heard from?
Like that's the whole group.
Sure, and
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I was on a headphone connected to my cell phone, so hopefully this will help cut out any background noises on my cell phone. So my name is Jared Thor, and I'm the Office Manager and Membership Coordinator at SFTA. And with that, I do various things. Currently, one of the things that makes me silly is I have this obsession with mangonadas. And about 2 weeks ago, I didn't know that Madison had it. And so when I was hanging out with friends and they told me that, hey, Madison has mangonadas, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. And I was like a little kid in a candy shop. It was just a little bit funny because my face just totally light up. And for those of you who don't know what mangonadas are, they're like a Mexican ice cream.
Ah, all right.
Yeah. So. Yep.
Nice.
And this is Jody Wiedock. I'm the Executive Director at the Parenting Place in La Crosse. I'm also on the board of SFTA. And I'll say two things. When my daughter had a trampoline, we would play popcorn on the trampoline, which means she would bounce on it, and I would try to curl myself into a little ball and stay rolled into a little ball. And I would lose whenever I couldn't hold that anymore, and I would just giggle the whole time. And then right now, a brand new box of the 64 size of crayons will always make me happy and make me feel like a little kid.
All right.
Great, thank you. It's nice meeting you all virtually, and I know we will get to meet you personally for the full day session here in I think just about a month or so from today. But this is Dennis. I'm with Forward Community Investments as well, work with Ben and Advisory Services. I'm going to stick with the animal theme as well for my check-in. We have two Yoshans. They're small little dogs, and lately I've been really trying to communicate with them. And so we earlier this week we had our carpets cleaned in our house, so our whole house is just kind of in a state of disarray while we're waiting for the carpets to dry. And the dogs have been really out of their sorts, and so I've been really trying to have some good quality conversations with them to let them know that everything was going to get back to normal soon. I'm not sure they understand me at all, but it's interesting to watch their expressions when you really try and communicate with animals, so it's kind of fun. But thank you for that. You will find that we, as part of our facilitation, that when we come together, we often want to do a check-in as one of the first things that we do to try and help us to get to know each other a little bit better, but also just to create a space where we're all feeling comfortable. And so this part of this check-in that we're doing virtually today will also be part of that full day session and likely for the follow-up sessions as well. So I'm going to go to the next the slide here, which is really what we refer to are kind of team agreements. I don't recall Eric or Jill or Mary Beth in our prior conversations if we mentioned or asked if SFTA has any kind of operating agreements or expectations about how you all work together, but this is also a piece that we will bring into the full day session. So we're just throwing it out here now for people to start thinking about what might be some agreements that they want to put forward and how we're going to be and how we're going to work together. This smaller group, the Strategic Planning Work Group, will be together for several months, and so again, we'd like to establish common agreements in how we're going to be together and so that we can hold each other accountable and also create a space where everyone feels comfortable participating and contributing. So I would offer maybe one to start today is, one of the things that I always like to include in mine is having fun. I think oftentimes we get really serious in whatever work that we're doing, wherever we work, and it's important to also bring the fun into that space. And so that's one that I might put forward. Does anyone have any others that they feel like they might want to put together? Are you familiar or do you have questions about when we talk about agreements, what we're kind of after?
Yeah, I think one we talked about is kind of valuing everybody's opinion.
Okay. Great. Jill, what's one agreement that you would want to put forward?
You know, I was just thinking about our priorities as an organization that we've set in the past, and one of those is responsive systems, and I think that really speaks to that we're really intentional about thinking about the different perspectives of all of our stakeholders, from our members to the different populations we serve, that, that we're just really taking into account all of those perspectives. So I didn't really make that an agreement.
I'm conscious of perspective.
I like put it well. Be conscious of perspectives.
Okay, be conscious of perspectives. Great. Who else?
That kind of takes care of a lot. I am always thinking about focusing the work that we do always goes to one peer. So I am always thinking of who is at the center of everything we do. And that's a child. So how can I say this in team agreement?
Keep the child at the center.
I read it in your eyes.
I also think in this work group it's important that we be realistic about our goals and in the strategic planning going forward here.
Great. What does being realistic look like, or what might that be for you?
I think, you know, more than anything, it's just being really honest and really looking at our current organization structure, and not over bargaining what we can do or what we can't do. I think that's important, at least in my opinion, anyways, to make you know, like to meet goals and things like that.
Great. Is that Jody speaking?
It was sure. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out if that was Jody or not. Jody, do you have one that you want to put forward? I think you might be on mute if you are talking to us. Or we have lost you. What about Gur?
I think Gur just
You're
provided
right.
that to you.
I was on mute. I was on mute. I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
All
we
right.
can.
So I do have one, and I'm stealing it from someone else. I don't remember where it was from, but it was really meaningful to me because I participate in a lot of groups like this. So know when to step up and know when to step back. So I think it kind of speaks to those of us who maybe just different personality styles. You know, someone is share a lot. And so that's the message of, you know, when do you know that you've said enough? And then those who tend to be quiet, when should you step up? And even I apply that to kind of those risky ideas that I perceive in my mind, where I think, ooh, I don't know if I should say that. I don't know how well received it would be. So that's where I kind of go to, okay, when do I need to step up here?
I like it. It's great. I think it brings a great way to try and encourage those that maybe are more introverted or reserved. How do they engage? And those of us that are more extroverted, I'm an extrovert. How do I know when to tone it down or to step back in your words? So that's great. Thank you.
I'm muting now.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You sound great when you're off mute, and you sound great when you are on mute. Anything you want to put forward, Ben?
I think this is a really good list. You know, I think a lot of these get to that point of we're going to be sharing a lot together, and so creating a space where we all feel comfortable is really key. And that's what that in the blue, to ask for what you need and offer what you can is this is an ongoing invitation. If there's something you feel you need, whether it be an idea, a break, a walk, whatever will help you get to a place where you can really share fully, ask for it. And then on the other end, if there's things that you can offer to the table to that step up part, you know, be sure that you do so. And we want to make sure we create that space that fits for all of us together as we move forward.
Great.
Is there anything that you'd like to add, Dennis?
I don't think so right now. I guess the one thing I would also want to acknowledge is that we will bring these to the full group when we have the full day session in September and ask for everyone to elaborate or add to the list. So this is kind of about getting it started, and we'll encourage this activity with the full group in September. So with that, I'm going to just kind of briefly give you a road tour, a map of kind of where we're going and what we're going to do today. But we really want to review the project scope for everyone and specifically the timeline. We're going to walk you through kind of really having a good understanding of all of the moving parts of what's happening, and some of those parts are already in place. The interviews have been occurring. Some of you may have participated in that. We've had a couple of early meetings with Eric and Jill and Mary Beth to kind of talk about how we're going to, who's going to be involved in what parts. And so today is really trying to orient all of you on kind of the model and the process. We will provide an overview of what is tagged on this slide as the RTSP. It's actually the acronym for Real-Time Strategic Planning. So we're going to kind of walk you through what that looks like so you have a better sense of understanding of what's going to happen when we come together as the full group in September. And then we are going to have a discussion of some of the pre-session work that we need to occur, and then wrap up and talk about next steps and kind of what's happening and have some opportunities for formal Q&A. But I would encourage you, if you got questions along the way, please just stop us, interrupt us, and say, hey, I don't get that, or can you tell me more about this, or whatever. We want this to be informal today, even though we are kind of in a virtual environment and we can't see everyone. Please just jump in if there's something that you'd like to know more about. So we always start with the mission of the client, and so I think it's a great reminder. And when we were putting together the agreements of keeping that focus on the child, that really is resonant here. But the current mission for Supporting Families Together Association is to build systems and support quality care resources and education to enrich the lives of children. So we will start the full day session in a similar activity. I guess one question I might have for you, Eric, or Jill, or Mary Beth, or anyone, is when was the last time the mission was revisited?
I'm going to say around 2008, 2007 or 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Was the
right to you?
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Jody would probably she would know of, if it changed with any of the reorg pieces.
I don't recall a time. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can't remember a time of really talking about the mission since, that reorg time.
Okay.
Okay. So this, we tend to always start strategy with kind of vision, mission, and values. And if there has been some time since it was last, and I'm calling it revisited, I'm not saying that there has to be any wholesale change or any changes, quite honestly, that may be necessary. But we probably will start that strategy day with some discussion around mission, vision, and values. So here's the placeholder for now, and maybe it remains, or maybe it's modified in some way. But generally, we always encourage the organization or the client to really think about, what are you doing and for whom, and what is the change that you're seeking to make in your world. And so that's kind of the vision and mission piece. Do you want to get us going on the project scope and work?
Yeah. So the next part that we really want to touch on is just where are we fitting everything in and kind of what the steps are. And so on this slide, this is from the work plan, the phase 1, stakeholder engagement and initial research. This is largely complete now. We had the kickoff meeting today, which is listed on here, reviewing relevant background materials. I believe we have 206 files from SFP. So we've gotten everything that we need from our end. I believe all the stakeholder interviews are complete, and so we'll be synthesizing that into a summary memo of really what are those themes of what we heard, and that'll be a good place to kind of have some discussions and to kind of introduce what we'll be doing next in terms of moving forward. The second phase, this is really the planning for the full day around the strategy development. So to review our work and get ready to kick off that full day, make sure we're all clear on what we'll be seeking to achieve, and then that full day meeting on September 24th. Following that full day, we'll be breaking down in that smaller group, the writing group, which will really be taking the strategies and ideas that were formed during that full day and refining them. So that just some of it's getting some space away from that full day where we really thinking through things to get with a sound grasp of this is what we think is our future direction and how we'll get there. At that point, we will do some external interviews. This is a great time to get kind of outside of the fishbowl and hear from some of those other stakeholders that are critical to our organization to hear what they think of the strategy direction. Does this make sense to them? Does it resonate with their understanding of SFTA? What are their questions that they have? And this is a good just kind of sound check to make sure that what we're thinking of makes sense and resonates with those key supporters and stakeholders. So one more meeting to kind of revise the work that's been done there and to kind of take that feedback and make any tweaks that might be necessary. And the last phase, phase 4, in December and January, this is really about taking these strategies and the direction and making sure that we can achieve them. And so I believe, Gary, you shared that, making sure that we're realistic. This is that realism check where we look at, okay, if this is what we're wanting to achieve, what's the time frame that it'll take to get it done, who will be leading it, and what other resources may be required to make sure that we can be successful with it. And this really helps embed that ability to kind of review and revise it. So if for some reason we get behind or if we get ahead, what does that mean? What can we change? How do we have to look at these priorities differently to make sure that we're really being effective with this new strategy?
And there will be a formal work plan that once we have some of the dates, which we're going to try and actually set up maybe with everyone on the phone today for some of the time frame after the full day session, there's a specific work plan that we will show you here when we're kind of getting farther down through this presentation so that you can see specifically kind of what's happening and then. So this is kind of I'd say almost a 10,000-foot view of what's going to happen in these 4 different phases. And there's a much more detailed work plan that will be shared with everyone on this work group. So as I mentioned, this is just another way to kind of illustrate the timeline of kind of what's happening when. The stakeholder engagement initial research has been occurring since we started the contract in July. Many of the interviews have been occurring over the last probably 3 to 4 weeks or so. And they'll be just turned into that summary number that Ben was talking about. The phase 2 really is that strategy development. And the one thing that I would note there, sometimes clients and work groups and teams feel like, oh, we're coming together, we're going to walk away with a strategy. And so depending on how strategy has been developed in the organization prior, oftentimes people are feeling like, oh, we didn't get enough accomplished on that full day session. And by design, it is intended to be really messy. And so the full day session, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things are going to happen, which we're going to walk you through here in a little bit. But essentially, I want to just call out early, and we'll probably continue to call it out, is that this is a kind of a messy process. We are going to move through it together in that full day session, but that really is just the beginning of the strategy development. It's not the end.
Yeah, and I think part of that is, this is the most creative of the phases where we're looking at, both what was and what is and then what's possible. And to Jody's point, and I really liked her comment about the be ready to step up or step back. There's going to be a lot of times where some people have, I think it's just, people are moving in different wavelengths as we're looking at what could be, and so I think that's where that messiness feeling comes from. But when you get through that, you can really have some breakthroughs into some great ideas, and that's really where those next steps are about refining them and then making sure they're realistic and testable.
Yep. And again, when we show you the work plan here in a little bit, you'll get a much tighter idea of kind of all the things that are going to occur within these phases. So we want to give you an overview of the real-time strategic planning model, and part of that really starts with how do we define strategy. And this model was developed and published in a book called The Nonprofit Strategy Revolution. If you like strategy and you like this kind of stuff, it's a great read. I think Eric and Jill and maybe Mary Beth, I don't recall if you have a copy as well, but some folks are actually buying the book and getting really engaged in kind of the model. And so it's a pretty easy read. And if you like that stuff, I encourage you, and we can provide a link on the book after this call today. But this is the definition of strategy, and from our perspective, it really is a coordinated set of actions that really is designed to help create and sustain a competitive advantage in achieving the nonprofit's mission. And there's one key word here that usually sticks out for people, and that is the word competitive. Oftentimes in our sector, we are collaborative by nature. We are focused on the mission, our clients, our capacities, and I think oftentimes we don't think of ourselves in that competitive framework. And so part of this will be helping people to understand kind of what, we look at the marketplace or we look at what's going on in the external environment. Who else is there? How do we fit in? What's our position in comparison to others? How do we leverage that? And so I just offer that as an early kind of nuance of this definition, and sometimes there's an edge for people with the word competition.
And really, it's about achieving that mission in the end, and so how do we use those strengths that we have? And so when you're doing that external review, what are the other strengths that others may have that we could partner with and use? So it's not necessarily saying that we're doing this in a way to win or beat someone. It's really about how do we best use our talent to reach that mission.
And quite honestly, oftentimes when you look at who else is in a marketplace, many organizations compete and collaborate with the same organizations. It's just knowing the difference of when and how. You want to go through this pyramid?
Yeah. So this pyramid kind of highlights some of the nuance when we talk about strategy and strategic planning. And there's many layers of different types of strategy. And so at the top and circled in red is the organizational. This is around the mission and the direction of where we want to go, and it's really that high level, where are we pointing. The programmatic strategies are around what are the services and programs and offerings that we're providing, the partnerships that we have that help us deliver on our mission. And below that at the base are the operations. This is the HR, the finance, the facilities. These are the bedrock of our organization. Without that, we wouldn't have the infrastructure to move forward. So strategies in that realm must be around how we can get more effective, efficient.
We're getting a little bit of background noise. I don't know if someone has their phone off mute or if it's coming from us, but I want to encourage us to try and be on mute if we can. Thank you.
And so then the last one, this is an important one because I think it can often be missed because it's more of a human factor, and that's the blue one, the governance. And this is both the board governance and the executive governance. How are we steering this ship of our organization on the people side? So what are the strategies we're doing to build our talent and capacity to manage and lead at both the board and executive and staff levels?
And I would say, just to echo on Ben's point there, the blue is our adaptation of the model that La Piana has put forth. They don't talk about governance, and we feel in our work and our experience that it's so critical that those organizations also look at the governance and governance as a strategy, and how do you engage the board, and how do you have a really high impact governance strategy in place to help execute the operational, programmatic, or organizational. So it's not that the board is involved in operations, it's how does the board set policy for operations? How does the board set policy and ensure that there are resources to support programs? And then obviously the board is clearly involved in how do they set direction for the agency. So we're going to walk through kind of, there's a visualization of the model here, kind of these steps A through G. And we're going to walk through each of those individually here in a minute, but essentially, just kind of pointed out that on the full day session, we end up going through steps A through E. And so a lot of this is happening in that full day session. Kind of the first part is around who are we, looking at our business model, market awareness, and competitive advantage, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. You know, also answering the questions of kind of where are we, how did we get here, and then obviously where are we going next. And there's some tools and some decision-making frameworks that are involved in the strategy screen and the big question origination. So let's take a look at the current business model.
Great. And so when we talk about the current business model, this kind of covers everything about what we're doing today. So it's both the geography we're working in, the customers that we're seeking to serve, the programs that we're providing, and importantly, what's often left out is the funding that enables that to happen. And so when we look at that business model, it's really who are we, what are we doing, how do we do it, and then how do we finance it. So we have some tools and frameworks around really kind of understanding that and communicating that in a clear way. And this is a great point in time to check in with that mission and see, once we have that look of our current business model, how does our mission match that model? And if there's some areas where it doesn't seem to match, or if it's not clear, then that's usually an area to highlight as we look at our future strategies.
So this is just a little bit closer detail and really close to one of the worksheets that we'll be doing with the full group, but really, again, kind of geographies. Where do we serve? Where do we not serve? Who do we serve? What are the programs that we offer? And then what, as Ben was just mentioning, what's the funding model to support the business? I think when I think of strategy, oftentimes it's easy to fill in the what we do and where these things fit in. But oftentimes what really is more critical is answering what we're not doing. And that's the illustration on kind of the right-hand column of really what does it not include? Where do we not work? Who do we not serve? What programs do we not offer? And what funding do we not seek? And specifically the reasons why. And so part of that conversation will occur in the full day session.
I think that is often one of the more difficult things because we want to be able to serve everyone and provide all of these things, but creating that focus of really the sandbox is critical. The other part of the current business model is really around the financials, and so what are the funding sources, both as a whole for the organization and over time, as well as from the program income and expenses.
Ben and Dennis, I have a question.
Yes, yes.
Okay, when you're talking about the things that we don't do currently, are we also are we looking at two different things, like what we don't do because we don't think it's what we want to do, and things we don't do, but we also maybe want to be open to those?
That is a wonderful question. We're getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, we are too.
Well, I will try to, I think that is a great question, and when we list out what that does not include, it's really what are we not focusing on. And so some of those may be things that we're selectively not doing, and others may be ones where I would do this, or it'd be great if we had those things. And this is why we start with these models and conversations in the morning of our full day, so that we have that ready to in our minds as we look at what could we be doing. And that's a great question. We will want to prioritize those things. Thank you.
This is Jody, and I have a comment about that. I think it connects that question that Mary Beth asked and just that whole conversation around what don't we do connects back to what Jer initially talked about, which is let's be realistic.
Yeah, and I think especially with the customers served, I think that's one area where we'll have some exercise around this too about prioritization. And so there may be many people that we touch, but who are the most critical, and what are the ones that we really focus on, 90% of our efforts. And then so being that it does not include doesn't mean that we don't care about them or don't prioritize them. Similar with funding, there may be some funding sources that you'd happily take if you could get them, but you wouldn't be expending the effort to seek them out because it may just not be realistic.
Yeah, I guess the other thing I would add to Mary Beth's question is keyword on this activity is current. So what are we doing today? What are we not doing today? And a large part of this is to help us, and us being everyone in the room at that full day session, to start framing our thinking perhaps differently around what are we doing, what are we not doing, what could we be doing, what should we be doing. And so this activity is specifically, what are you doing now? But it leads into, when we get to the later steps in the model, specifically around big questions, in that, that's where things that maybe we're not doing today might start to show up. So a lot of this is framing and getting people to start kind of really examining what we're doing as we move later into the model around kind of what are the opportunities, what are the big questions facing the organization. So the next piece, I think we talked around that one, yeah, is kind of then, so the business model is really looking internally. The market awareness and competitive advantage is really starting to look at more of an external framework. And so there are a couple of different pieces within there that really are trying to identify kind of what's going on. So we're talking about the trends, we're talking about the position of the organization in the marketplace, and we're talking about, again, competition. And so trends really are the forces, or those external things that are going on that may have an impact on the work that we do. They can be social impacts, they could be economic impacts or trends, they could be technology, there could be some political or policy things that are occurring that are impacting our work, but they're really kind of looking at, what are all the things that are impacting us and our position there. When we talk about position, we're talking about the market, kind of like where the work is done, what's going on out there, and what's the current place for SFT in there, and how did you get there? And competition, we're talking about, again, those, who else is in the marketplace? What are their strengths? What are their non-strengths? What are SFTA's strengths? How can they be leveraged, perhaps against some of the others that are in the marketplace? So we were trying to get a good sense of the current business model, and then this whole step is really around trying to look at the external environment and kind of what's going on there.
So we'll just kind of skip through some of these competition ones, but there's a lot of different ways that you can compete. I'll jump back just for a moment. And so it's not just in terms of funding, but it's also in terms of constituents and clients, human capital, board members, staff members, volunteers, time and attention. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at competition. And so some of it are those direct competitors, like Pepsi and Coke are direct competitors. But a substitutable competitor would be one that meets the same need but in a different way. So if you're a child care provider, one other alternative could be someone's grandmother or neighbor would be a substitutable competitor, someone that can fulfill that same child caring service but in a very different means. And then finally, those resource competitors, this is most frequently where nonprofit and social organizations tend to compete, is really around the abilities and sources of capital, both financial and human, to really deliver services. So once we've taken a look at both the competition and where we feel like we're strong, we can kind of define what are those advantages that really set us apart and make us unique. And those are the things that we really want to emphasize as we look at what strategies would be effective for us. And so when we take a look at that, I think that's really where we want to. These are the things that we can take forward and leverage as we move into our future plan and help us grow and be more impactful.
Can you jump back to slide 12?
12?
Yeah, the model. Oh, yeah, yep, right there. So the A, B, and C is kind of what we just went through. And there are exercises. There's a few things that we're going to need to have done beforehand. And then much of these activities are going to be occurring in the morning of that full-day session. That's leading up to what is referred to as kind of the strategy screen. And, we were talking about, Mary Beth, you asked the question about things that we're not doing today. Many times, in our experience, and quite honestly at our own organization, lots of opportunities show up. And if there isn't a way to really filter them and try and decide on which ones are the ones that we want to pursue and put effort and resources in, oftentimes you can end up with folks maybe going in different directions. Advisory services wants to do this. Our lending department wants to do that. Our advocacy work is going over here. And so the strategy screen is a way, it's a decision-making filter that really helps an organization start to define how they're going to look at opportunities and then make really clear decisions around how they're going to pursue them or if they're going to pursue them. So it really helps organizations come together around an opportunity and make a conscientious decision about why we're doing something that we're potentially pursuing. And so I will tell you, this is probably the one tool that most organizations come back to us after the process and say, that's the thing that really helps us the most, because we are do-gooders in this in this sector. Again, we're focused on mission, we're focused on providing services and helping people and communities. And I think oftentimes it's hard for people to say no. We want to do more because we want to do good work and do more good work. And so this tool is really, I think, the one that we tend to hear the most from, that it has an impact not only in the process, but this is a tool that really tends to have longevity after the strategy work has been developed. Is there anything you want to add there?
No, I think it really is one of the more useful things, just because the opportunities can be so different that finding a way to compare them apples to apples is just so tricky.
Yeah. And we will develop the strategy screen in the full day session. Yeah. So again, we're going through A through C, kind of looking to see what's here now, Then we're going to create the strategy screen through a large group exercise and kind of really discriminate and determine what are those, typically I would say 5 to 7 or 8 kind of key questions that we're going to use to filter opportunities. And we're really using that as we start to move into the next phase, which is then answering kind of what are the big questions facing the organization. And once we've identified the biggest of the big questions facing the organization, we use the strategy screen that we've developed in that day session right then and there kind of live to filter what are the options on how we would potentially answer those biggest of the big questions. So again, A through E is really happening in that full day session. There's a little bit of pre-work that needs to occur beforehand, but for the most part, the model is all coming together when we assemble everyone in the room. So I'm going to pause there to see what kind of questions people have, or if there's anything that maybe we went too fast over, or Eric or Jill or Mary Beth, since you're reading or have read the book, if you have anything you want to add at this point.
Well, I just have one kind of, I mean, like logistical question. I think we're still talking about what the location was for the full day session. And just while I'm thinking of it, we should. Have you had any luck on?
We did. We confirmed with. I'm blanking on their new name.
Wisconsin Bank and Trust.
Wisconsin Bank and Trust, which has a location on the west side. They have a rather large conference room that we'll be able to use, and I think if those we'll make sure that update gets included in the calendar invite,
okay,
so that everyone has it. But thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, Eric, it's on the corner. I think you said that most of the folks coming from out of town are going to be staying on the west side. So this facility is on the corner of Mineral Point Road and Junction Road, not far from West Town. So we'll get that out as a reminder for everyone. And I think your board is coming together the day before.
That's right.
Okay, great. Okay. Any other either logistic or questions about the model or what's going to happen on the full day session from anyone?
I guess that I will clarify. That is just, you only reserved for the 24th, the actual strategic. So we still need to find our board room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is correct. I can see it.
No, that's
room is available.
Yeah, we're good. We'll figure that out. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. And my apologies if the intent was for us to find the meeting for the board meeting as well.
It wasn't at all, but those are the kinds of things that I tend to miscommunicate about. So I just thought I'd clarify now.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from anyone else right now before we start to look at kind of the work plan a little bit more closely and try to set out the details after the full day session?
I think we're good on this.
Yeah, I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. So while Ben pulls up the work plan to try and help schedule the meetings, essentially there's 5 different weeks that we are trying to look at potential dates for us to come together after the full day session. And so that's the group that's kind of on the call today to bring us together to take what I referred to earlier as the messiness of what's going to happen on that full day session and really start to refine it into something that is more discernible that we can take to the external stakeholders and then eventually start to operationalize and move into that implementation planning phase. So there is, I think what you can see hopefully is this is the more detailed work plan, and the things in red and yellow are the dates that we're trying to establish right now. And so the first is the summary report from the interviews that's going to come out, we expect probably by the 5th, no later than the 5th of September. And so what we were thinking is bringing this group together to explore potential things that are in the summary report and also have any of the pre-work completed by what I've got in red here is potentially Wednesday the 17th of September for the next call with this group or next GoToMeeting virtual session. So I'm throwing that out there to see how does the 17th of September work for people for another 60 to 90-minute call.
Fine. Fine with me. Yeah, earlier in the day the better.
Yeah, for me, later in the day is better. So if you're,
I'd be okay up until like 4. Okay. I just have to hang it earlier and some and stay back with plan.
So if it was afternoon, that would work for you.
Every day. Okay.
I'm just on baby call, so good, unless I'm not.
So I heard one request for earlier in the day, I heard one request for later in the day, and while we'll try and accommodate everyone, as you all know, when we try and schedule group meetings with lots of different people, sometimes it's hard to accommodate everyone.
I may do it later in the day. I'll just make it work.
Okay. Does anyone else have issues with later in the day? And I'm not sure what later in the day means. We might want to be a little bit more specific there.
yeah, if we could pick a time right now, then I could. I'm more likely to be able to be there. That's all.
Okay.
Jeez, sorry.
I don't know. Well, it's not on your calendar. The one thing, Ben and I are I'm actually on a plane that afternoon to a conference. So Ben and I were just having a conversation to make sure he's available, and it looks like he is. I would be available in the morning. He'd be available in the afternoon. Again, I don't think it's a concern that it's one or the other, but as long as one of us is there to facilitate the conversation. So I think I'm hearing that the preference is for the afternoon, like around 3 o'clock.
How long is that meeting?
Morning.
Probably 60 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes, somewhere in there. We probably reserve 90 minutes, Jill, but you know, it may not take that long.
Mary Beth just said before 4 o'clock, so would it be better to be 2:30?
We'll just do it. We'll just do it.
You want to do it at like 1 o'clock?
Can anybody not make it at 1? Jody, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I guess I prefer 1.
2:30. So we'll put a hold from 1 to 2:30 on the 17th. And the other thing that I'm getting a lot of background noise again, but sorry about that. We will send out all the calendar holds to everyone. So once these dates are established, don't worry that if you're writing them down now and trying to get it in, we will send you a calendar hold later today or first thing on Monday to make sure that these are held on your calendars. So then the next piece is really to look at kind of coming out of the full day session. Is the debrief meeting after the first meeting, which I was thinking the week of October 6th, which would be 2 weeks later. We need a little bit of time to pull some of the raw notes together from the full day session. So I'm curious on how the week of October 6th looks for people.
I can make it work as long as I can be on my phone.
I think that's a pretty bad week for a lot of people here.
Should we look at the next week, Jill?
So just looking at some of the big, because you guys are at the tribal conference, and then I'm out in Chicago 6th through the 8th. So
The 9th would be.
and we have Young Star meetings all day.
On the 9th?
Yep.
How does Friday look?
Hayward,
the pickleball.
Yep, and I might be presenting at another
I'll be driving
conference.
that day anyway. So. The next week looks really. How about you guys?
There's more time.
You're going the next week?
Is that
Yeah, I
when
am
you're-
going to take a week of vacation.
The week of the 13th, the best day for me would be the Tuesday the 14th, either in the morning or early afternoon.
I'm good with either one.
I'm fine with either one.
I'll be out.
So that's 2 people.
So
2 people are out.
like 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday the 14th?
We have 2 people who are out then, and I mean, that would leave us with 5 people. I don't know if that's.
Abby and Romy aren't here that day.
What about Monday the 13th? Is that a better day?
I'm out the whole week, so when are you here that week?
We have I'm here Wednesday through Friday, just have a training.
Okay, so if it was Wednesday through Friday, we'd be missing one person.
And I'm out Friday and the last part of the Thursday.
Oh, so Wednesday and Thursday morning.
Wednesday and Thursday morning.
We always do this.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Better to be doing it now.
Yep.
Thursday
Or
morning would
zeroing
not
on
work,
Wednesday.
and Wednesday would work if we did it first right away in the morning.
Let's do that.
That's fine.
Jody and Jer, you okay with that?
Jer fell off. She's under the weather. That's why she's home. And she
Oh,
just texted
right.
me to say she's not feeling well.
That's too bad.
This is Jody. I have a standing meeting with staff on Wednesday morning, so sometimes it floats around. It's a possibility. Don't keep changing for me.
What's first thing in the morning? Are you talking about like 8 o'clock?
Yeah, that's what I mean, help us understand what's first thing for you all in your culture, but I would say 8:30 would be first thing for us. That ends up at 5 in the morning, but I'm not usually up that early.
I mean, 7:30, at least the three staff, we're all here by 7:30.
I could do 7:30.
7:30 is a start time for me too.
Okay, 7:30
Okay.
with me.
So if we did 7:30 to 9 on Wednesday the 15th,
Okay.
Sounds good.
okay, great. I know this is a little painful right now, but it's easier if we get these dates set now than trying to do it later, and everyone's calendars get crazy. So then, if that's the week of the 15th, then the second meeting we'd be looking at the week of the 20th. The goal here is to try and do these meetings once a week to keep the momentum moving forward. So looking at the week of the 20th, the only day that is not available for me is Tuesday the 21st. I could do anything on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday.
I can only do the Wednesday then.
I'm actually out of town that whole week, and I could join my phone if possible, but I can't tell you right now if it would be possible.
Wednesday's fine for me.
Wednesday's fine for
It
me.
has to be in the morning.
So
Or, I mean, we could change our directors.
So don't hold it now.
Did I hear that Mary Beth was out that whole week?
I'm out that whole week, but it looks like
Okay.
I'm the only one who can't make it.
You know, missing one meeting here or there is probably okay. If someone misses a meeting more than once or twice in a row, they just start to kind of get behind where the group is.
Yep.
And then we would, you know, it just slows the process down. And so,
Could we do that Wednesday at 7:30 again?
I might be able to do it then.
First thing in the morning.
Oh wait, I'll be in another time zone.
East Coast is also is it East Coast.
Yeah, it'll be 8:30, but I can try and do it for sure. You know,
so 7:30 the Wednesday the 22nd.
That works for Jody.
Great.
Okay, I'll very much try and be there.
Okay. And the week of the 27th?
Let's do it on the same day at the same time.
Okay.
I can't do Wednesday that week. I would need to do Monday or Tuesday. Does Monday or Tuesday work?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay. Tuesday I just have something from like 11 to 12:30, but other than that I'm free.
Should we do it early?
If we did it right at, did you want to do it at 7:30 again in the morning, or?
That works.
Yeah,
That works for Jody.
Okay.
that would be Tuesday the 28th.
Say the 28th. So did I hear Tuesday the 28th at 7:30?
Yep.
Okay. Now we've shifted a little. I'm just trying to look at the work plan. Usually what happens is, you know, there's a group that's working on this, and then sometimes we bring back the larger group, but it sounds like everybody's been able to stay with us so far. So that would be 1, 2, 3. What do you think?
Might be a good point then if everyone's...
Yeah. The idea is that there's a break here between once we've got things refined into what we refer to as a strategy statement, then we do the external interviews, and while we're doing those, we would not be meeting because we'd be conducting those conversations with those other parties. So 15, 20, 27. if we didn't have that one, yeah, that'd be 3 meetings. I think we're okay. So then we go into the, and there's also the holiday in here. So then if we did external interviews the week of the 3rd of November and the 10th, how does the week of November 17th then to come back with everyone to get the feedback from the external interviews?
The 17th would be best for, and Romy doesn't work on Monday.
Well, no. I have actually a meeting with the Family and Community Partnership Project, but it's in the afternoon. I'm flexible on Monday.
Okay here.
So did I hear afternoon or morning? I didn't quite catch that.
Morning.
Okay. 7:30 again?
What day are we talking about right now? This is Jody.
I think what I heard was Monday the 17th was the day that worked for those.
Yep, I could do 7:30 on the 17th.
Early bird.
We have to maybe set an alarm, for heaven's sakes.
I just epiphany. You all are in the child care space. No wonder you're up so early.
I can see why you all like coffee.
That will also be an hour and a half, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's good for the scheduling right now. At some point, the other piece that will happen is once we get through that refinement piece, we have a couple of meetings where creating the strategy statement, fleshing out what the draft options are to answer those big questions. Then we do the external stakeholder interviews, then bring everybody back to give the feedback if there's any changes that we want to make based on what we heard. Then the group starts to get a little bit smaller. And so we move into from the strategic planning work group to really that kind of writing team. And oftentimes that is a smaller group, potentially 3 to 4 people perhaps. And depending on what the strategies are, oftentimes if there's anything that is governance related, we need a board member to stay with us. Oftentimes the leaders of the organization are still there, and depending on if there's specific programmatic strategy, there may be some staff that need to be involved as well. So we don't need to schedule those meetings right now, and we're going to send you the work plan afterwards, but generally, in order to try and get this engagement and the plan ready for 2015, we're really kind of shooting to try and have those implementation planning meetings in December and into the new year. Also knowing that the holidays are there and that there's probably going to be some time where there needs to be a break. So I'm just floating that out there right now. I think the other piece that we need to plug in here, Eric and Jill, is the board meetings that are potentially occurring in October, November, December, so that if there's an update that needs to be provided to the board on where you are with the strategy, it's just a great way to really kind of pull the full board back in. And since Mary Beth is on the work group and Jody's on the work group, you know, it's a way to make sure that the board is kind of kept abreast of like where's the plan moving after that full day session. So any questions about the work plan? And again, this will get filled out and completed as we move forward.
Did you want those board meetings now?
Sure, if you have them, we'd love to take them. If you could rattle them off.
Yep. We have them October 29th from 9 to 10:30.
No, that's the exact.
And these are executive, so it's not the full board. We don't actually have another full boarding meeting until December.
Okay.
And then the next one is November 19th from 9 to 10:30 as well.
And then the full board meeting is when in December?
It is on December 2nd.
Okay.
From 10 until...
Go ahead.
Sorry, from 10 until 3. Yep.
10 until 3. Is the meeting schedule been set for 2015?
No.
Okay. The reason I asked that question is I'd be curious from your perspective, or Mary Beth or Jody, board members that are on the line, when do you see the board adopting and ratifying the plan?
Well, December would be too soon. Maybe, you know, the next full board meeting is what, usually March.
Yes.
Is that too soon also, or is that a good?
March would be we'd be acting on it.
Yeah.
That'd be.
We just have to take into consideration that if the plan starts in 2015, that it really wouldn't be starting until probably second quarter of 2015 if the board didn't approve it until the end of, or sometime in March.
This is, I just think that sounds realistic, and you know, the start and end times, and from my perspective, don't have to be a hard date in January. You know, having a thoughtful plan that's well put together is really important to me. So it doesn't matter if it's March, I think.
That sounds good. And I think with the timing of these meetings, it'll be nice for at the board, you know, the meeting on the 19th will be after we've had the external interview feedback, so there could be some time for reflection on that. You know, by December 2nd, we would be kind of starting to move into the refined set of ideas, and so I think there'll be some good points for input along the way leading up to it, so it won't be their first time they see it in March, which will also be good.
And hopefully you're getting a sense that the way the engagement is designed and the model is really that we get big group feedback, then we go back and do some refinement or some planning work, then we bring everybody back around kind of where are we, what did we hear from the external stakeholders, then we go back to the smaller group, the writing group, to try and operationalize that. Then we go back to the full group to say, okay, here's kind of what we're thinking of how this would actually play out, get some feedback, come back and you know, fine-tune it again a little bit more. So the whole idea is to keep this kind of ebb and flow between the large group, the board, the small group, the work group, then the writing group, then the work group again. So there's kind of this back and forth between keeping everyone engaged around what's happening. How does that sound?
Sounds good. You know, the other thing is, you know, we do have the executive committee meetings. If we think the whole board needs to know something, we'll just contact them after the meeting. Invite them to the meeting.
It's only about 4 more people.
I know, right? Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Right. Good. Okay. Is the meeting date set for March yet?
No.
No.
Okay. When that's set, will you just let us know so we get it on the calendar as well? Okay. Then I think, jumping back into the presentation, we got the meeting schedule. I think that's. Any other questions or any other concerns or any other things that anyone wants to bring forward?
Is the work plan going to come out, you know, with the, you said you're going to send the slides out, you're going to send the work plan?
Yep.
Yep. We'll send it as the most current work plan. The work plan is oftentimes shifting some. You know, I want to honor Jody's message or Jody's comments around let's do it right, let's not try and jam it in and get it done by X date. Mm-hmm. Because oftentimes, you know, I don't want to say things don't happen, but if all of a sudden there's a couple people who can't make a work group meeting, we may have to postpone and then extend that work into the next work group meeting. So while this is our first draft of the work plan and it's all with the best intent that we're all going to be there and it's going to stick, life sometimes happens. So I offer that knowing that the work plan is a draft and it's as current as the current date.
Right.
So we owe you the deck, the work plan,
Calendar invite.
the calendar invite, the updated location for the full day session, the address, and am I forgetting anything? Oh, and the worksheets. We need to talk a little bit about the, can you pull up those Excel files? Because of the funding sources, programming.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, Eric, that you might be the leader on these worksheets and helping these get completed. There's some financial stuff or financial data that needs to get entered into a couple of worksheets for the full day session. And Ben is pulling them up right now, but I think it's handout C and D maybe. So while we're waiting for those, I'm guessing that, Eric, that would fall under your domain.
Yeah, all of them would probably, maybe the exception of the competitor analysis. I'm thinking, Jill, that sounds good.
That sounds good.
And I'm thinking what we're going to do is when we come back together for that next call with this group before the full day session to help them go through the summary reports from the external interviews, we may want to go through worksheets E and F if these are completed by then, Eric. So that's, I can't remember when this was scheduled, I think September 17th.
Yeah.
This is about almost a month away, so I'm guessing that you can complete these in time, but
Yep,
we can help you work through them.
So it's E. So I'm sorry, it's E and
F.
Yeah, and we can send those out and after today, and we can have an offline conversation about it if necessary.
let's plan on that then.
Okay. We'll send those to you, Eric, and then set up time to review them if you need some questions answered.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, I tend to think of my questions the next day, and so if things do come up where you're like, oh, I wish I would have asked about this, or something just pops in your head at 3 a.m., feel free to send us an email or give us a call, and we have very open lines for dialogue about anything that comes up, and so don't hesitate to reach out.
So I'm going to end us with a checkout exercise, and I would ask for a one-word checkout in how you're feeling about the future strategy development of SFTA. Anyone want to go first?
Optimistic.
Thank you.
Ready.
Excited.
Interested.
This is Jody. I'll say curious.
Very nice.
They've all been said. I don't have anyone. Yeah, all of the above.
I'm very excited. That's 2 words, but
I was going to say excited, and they have been used several times, so I'll use enthusiastic as well. Well, we very much appreciate the opportunity to work and meet you all virtually today. We look forward to seeing you on the full day in September. And as Ben mentioned, we'll follow up with everything after today. It'll either come out today or Monday, first thing. And if you have any questions, any concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to us at any time. We'll also send a link to this for anyone that has missed it.
yeah.
I'm just making a note. So we'll send the recording to you as well, Eric, if you want to share that with any folks that we missed today.
Okay, thanks.
Okay?
You bet.
Yep.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Yes, and a wonderful weekend.
Great. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye,
Thanks,
Jody.
Hey, Jody.
Do you think that if we move this further away from the...
Yeah.